As far as frameworks for narrative fiction go, What If Man Was the Real Monster parables and You Can't Steal Fire from the Gods Without Getting Burned myths have endlessly endured, which goes some way to explaining why scholars, academics, artists, and enthusiasts still return to the well of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus. Conservatively, this haunting tragedy has been repurposed and repackaged by approximately 423 movies, 78 television series, and that's not including theatre, literature, or how intertextual allusions and knowing references have made this such a force of pop cultural ubiquity.
It's moving! It's alive! Oh, that fellow at Radio Shack said I was mad. Well, who's mad now?
With Guillermo del Toro finally realising his lifelong ambition to bring life to these weary bones, I thought it was as good a time as any to look at how Victor, his misunderstood creation, and Mary Shelley's cautionary words have continually been exhumed and exposed to the light by focusing on 5 generational adaptations. 1931, 1957, 1994, 2014, and 2025.
When you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?
The first feature-length full-sound attempt to capture these lightning cracks and pained groans, Frankenstein 1931, is in fact a reworking of the 1927 play Frankenstein: An Adventure in the Macabre. Omitting almost everything except the core reanimatory conceit, this shaved-to-the-bone adaptation of an adaptation is by no means faithful in the traditional sense, though it still manages to economically distill much of the novel's thematic enormity into just 70 minutes.
You never wanted to look beyond the clouds and the stars, or to know what causes the trees to bud, and what changes a darkness into light?
The claustrophobic use of rustic sound stages and creaky sets work in tandem with cinematographer Arthur Edison's form-defining monochromatic flair to deliver a world of gothic contrasts. Sanity and despair, reason and irrationality, life and death.
The storm will be magnificent. All the electrical secrets of heaven.
Adopting the bold lighting and angular architecture of German expressionist cinema, the film envelops us in Victor's rejection of conformity and morality without sucking all the air out of the room with wasteful exposition. Produced in the liminal tension between the First and Second World Wars, there's an additional disquieting layer to this megalomaniac set on sculpting a superior breed of man, who is facilitated in no small part by cronyism and exploitation.
If I could discover just one of these things, what eternity is, for example, I wouldn't care if they did think I was crazy.
This cult of personality and the background radiation of his eugenicist ideals, which in the real world were simmering beneath the worst shit stains of history whilst this was being made, also comes through in the creature's rejection of biological determinism, as he's hacked together to be some perfect being, but built from the product of perversion, and corrupted not by genetics, but by barbaric nurturing and the lack of any compassionate guidance. In many ways, this has become the archetypical take on the monster, though here he speaks not in words, but in exploratory body language and glottal yelps, dispensing with the poetry of Shelley's prose for a secular golem of naive power and fateful curiosity. While he lacks the immediately empathetic identifiers and motivations of later iterations, Boris Karloff instills this unknowable wretch with a powerful primal desire. He's a silhouette searching for the warmth of touch, but knowing to fear the flames of prejudice.
Get away with that torch!
Now, Frankenstein 1931 is comparatively Spartan in its narrative simplicity, and I won't be summarising the plot at any point here because we all know the plot of Frankenstein. I'd argue that neither the book nor any on-screen take that would follow has a moment that combines the bittersweet and shockingly brutal in a way that has lingered so long in the cultural consciousness as when the monster meets and accidentally murders Maria.
No, you're hurting me! No!
All of which leads to this personification of the other being refused any attempt to understand him before he is systematically destroyed by the gnashing terror of mob justice. As this nightmare of bloodlust and animus reaches its climax, we see a return to primitivism and the rejection of modernity as this totem of industry is returned to the earth, taking with it a creature born to suffer and perish for the sin of its own creation, dying beneath the harsh light of a burning cross. While this scene is wholly an invention for this feature, it stands in no conversation with the existential, religious, and tech fear themes the book represents.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
Now, are there moments where the changes and streamlining from paper to celluloid go too far? Well, yes. By excising the Arctic framing device, some of the soul slips away. Foregoing Victor's early life and his growth from perspicacious upstart to an ethically bankrupt genius also erases much of what makes Shelley's book such a potent study of corrosive ambition. That's why I'd recommend everyone watch this as a double feature with its superior sequel,
Bride of Frankenstein,
which incorporates a number of the novel's missing subplots and thematic footholds, and together makes for a richer, more complete body of work. Watching Frankenstein 1931 now, you're going to notice a heap of stuff that by today's standards will likely read as unintentionally funny. And before any elitist cinephilic tryhards get annoyed at that, look, there's been a century of artistic and technological progress since these cheap and visibly creased backdrops, and if you can't spare a charmed smile for a jar at a medical university labelled normal brain, or this gloriously silly ragdoll dummy, you might need to take yourself less seriously. The reason this holds up isn't down to fidelity or some impossible expectation of timelessness. What it comes down to is the lasting impact of its iconography, where a moment created whole cloth for the film and designs that diverge entirely from Shelley's Instruments of Life and Promethean Follies are now more ubiquitously recognisable and culturally omnipresent than anything 100 years of polish and filmmaking evolution have managed to yank from these pages.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! Oh, in the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God!
Having coaxed screams, sobs, and sympathetic nods from audiences the world over with its black and white brilliance, it'd be another 26 years before an injection of colour would see this creature coming in from the cold and finding some new folks to frighten. Much like the iconic trendsetter we just looked at, 1957's The Curse of Frankenstein is as loose a literary translation can be while maintaining the basic tenets that make this narrative tick. An intellectual thirst that saps away at the spirit, the destructive amorality of the uninhibited mining of knowledge, a skewed creature born of man's arrogance, and a blind man and a child by a river. All that stuff's still here. Don't let the common ground fool you though, as this is very different from the days of pyrotechnic windmills and Karloff's waxy complexion. Shot in a proprietary version of Technicolor, the drab and dour coarseness of its story is allowed to rumble along underneath without surrendering the sleazy greens or wine reds of its altogether nastier angle of approach. Peter Cushing's portrayal of Victor Frankenstein is cut loose from any semblance of audience sympathy, and by doing this, Cushing is allowed to relish in the detestable narcissism and unapologetic cruelty of his vainglorious, far-beyond-driven demeanour. This is also the first overtly sexual variation of Victor, by which I mean he is a polyamorous ghoul who finds a slimy satisfaction in indulging his misogynistic whims on any woman who happens to be within sneering distance.
I'd kill you!
You stupid little fool. Did you really think that I'd marry you?
You're hurting.
Get back to your work.
However, the most subversive element of The Curse of Frankenstein lies in how it tailors its politics of sexuality and repression in a manner practically unheard of in mainstream 1950s cinema.
We've broken through those barriers. There's nothing to stop us now.
As critics and film historians have gone on to note, there's an entrenched homoeroticism oozing from Victor's relationship with his tutor cum live-in collaborator, Professor Krempe.
The maid will show you to your room. Paul, come and see what I brought. Elizabeth, we'll see you at dinner.
Yes, but...
Paul, come on.
As he said, we'll see you at dinner.
Theirs is a complex pairing of longing glances, unspoken affections, and romantic jealousy, soaked through with the fear that their siloed-off life of secrets and probing perversions of the male form will see them cast out from polite society and imprisoned.
Probing into the unknown, investigating, recording, searching. Always searching.
At times their dynamic reminded me a lot of Mr. Burns and Waylon Smithers. But, half-joking simplifications aside, Victor in particular stands apart from just about any other reading of this character. Here he's a serial-killing proto-slasher antagonist who despicably attempts to create a subservient superhuman through anatomical mutilation, which places him closer to someone like Jeffrey Dahmer than some generic take on a rote, ethically adrift scientist. Putting Hammer Horror on the map, launching the careers of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, and inspiring everyone from Martin Scorsese and Dario Argento to Tobe Hooper and Tim Burton, The Curse of Frankenstein revitalized this hulking corpse, albeit in a way that only maintains a few of the key features of its parentage.
You're quiet. Cat got your tongue.
For something substantially more by the book, we would have to wait another 37 years for the epistolary beats of Shelley's text to faithfully find their way onto the big screen.
What have I done?
Director and lead actor Kenneth Branagh channeling a script by Steph Lady and Frank Darabont, yes, that Frank Darabont, goes back to the cracked spine and yellow pages of Mary Shelley for what, 30 plus years later, still stands as the most accurate translation of this text that I've seen. By reinstating logistically complex, character-dense sequences omitted from all but the most lavish translations, there is more room to look at what compels otherwise decent men to become cruel.
Don't you ever think of anyone or anything but yourself!
The Arctic sprawl that bookends the story serves not just as an intriguing setup and melancholic conclusion, but a much-needed graft of thematic tissue that too often gets snipped away.
Get the dogs! Get up! Eva. They're already dead.
The character of Captain Robert Walton, and the manner in which he seems to have shed his compassion and rational mind to better serve his unchecked ambition, expertly amplifies and dovetails with Victor Frankenstein's arc throughout the film.
We proceed north, as planned.
At the cost of how many more lives?
As many as it takes!
Whilst the duality here of the miraculous unknown and the untamable wild allegorically alludes to everything to come. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, as it is cumbersomely known, and no doubt as part of a marketing move to swim in the wake of Bram Stoker's Dracula, has a focused preoccupation with one thematic consideration in particular: how no one can consent to their own creation, and it is therefore the responsibility of the creator and society at large to protect this progeny from the burdens of existence and guide them in the direction of self-determination. To that end, the relationship between Victor and the monster in this rendition hinges on this fallible, fickle god and the violent corruption of their firstborn, who flits between yearning for the eternal graces of his father and spilling over with the unquenchable urge to burn heaven to the ground. These themes are central not only to the book and this film, but also their intertextual companion, John Milton's Paradise Lost. Frankenstein was always traced over the biblical template of Milton's masterpiece, and Lady Darabont and Branagh are clearly well read enough to realise you can't adapt the former without folding in the latter, right down to the devil and god duality of Victor and the fall of the monster once he tastes of the tree of knowledge.
There was something at work in my soul which I do not understand.
What of my soul? Do I have one? Or was that a part you left out?
That pathos, plight, and profundity are all there on the page, but ultimately, all of that stuff lives and dies in the performances, most notably Robert De Niro's.
I have love in me the likes of which you can scarcely imagine, and rage the likes of which you would not believe.
A threatening scaffold of jigsawed meat, a shimmering well of gentle contemplation, and a vanity-free bludgeon of vengeance, this might be my favourite realisation of Frankenstein's monster. Conversely, Branagh's Victor is more of a mixed bag. He can no doubt play the inquisitive man of means in his sleep, and he commits to the creepy pseudo-incestuous romance between Victor and his adopted sister with the gusto of a man who was very much having an affair with Helena Bonham Carter during production.
Brother and sister, no more.
Now husband and wife.
What he struggles with is the callous duplicity that envelops Victor in his drive to conquer death. He can play the high notes, but the atonal complexities of a character that dances between the raindrops just aren't here. Branagh's strength here isn't in his acting, it's in his directorial vision, as he attempts to wrestle this into a comprehensible but complete feature. The opulence, pageantry, costuming, decorative details, lavish sets, and outstretched exteriors are impressive in that they don't make epics like this anymore way, and lends to some of the boldest filmmaking ever attached to this premise. For example, Victor's machine of creation, reanimation, and transformation here is a reproductive facsimile. This pulsing sac expels a torrent of amniotic fluid and electric eels into a copper uterus to give life to an inanimate genetic husk. Is this sequence a Freudian migraine of hyper-literal symbolism? Yes, and it is awesome.
It's alive.
When the monster sets about dismantling his maker's world, he murders Victor's sister-wife Elizabeth with a grand guignol viciousness that, while bloodily extreme, gives weight to Elizabeth's objectification, death, desecration, and blazing exit, and punctuates how the amoral machinations of men speak only in a language of collateral damage. I also need to talk about arguably my favourite scene, when the monster makes the acquaintance of a kindly blind man.
A man shouldn't have to hide in the shadows.
Better that way for me.
Why?
People are afraid.
With no music and none of the pomp and melodramatic ham found elsewhere, it's a moving exhalation of pure vulnerability.
You poor man.
If only this level of measured emotional and tonal consistency were the rule rather than the exception. That's because Kenneth Branagh may well love this material, but he also seems to be at war with it. For as generally accurate as this is to Shelley's tome and the lofty ideations it holds, that level of fealty comes at the expense of tact and digestibility. Simply put, it's trying to fit too much into its 2-hour runtime.
So we can change things, we can make things better, now you know that!
Rather than picking out a few tough things to cut, Branagh instead dehydrates and tosses them around like confetti, which leads to some woefully ill-advised creative and editorial shortcuts. Note, you shouldn't open your feature with the disembodied voiceover of an author who died 9 years before the invention of the internal combustion engine.
I busied myself to think of a story which would speak to the mysterious fears of our nature and awaken thrilling horror.
And you definitely shouldn't go from that right into a clipped text crawl of exposition. Then we get to the saturation score. I hate it. It's punishingly loud and invasive to the point of absurdity, and it's so ill-fitting to what's happening on screen that it's tantamount to sabotage. Elsewhere, the pacing turns on a dime between indulgently slow and amphetamine fast, making for a potluck blur of crossfades, smash cuts, and asynchronous audio that's aiming for stylish, but reads as deeply pretentious.
No! You fool, Victor Frankenstein of Geneva. How could you know what you'd unleashed?
For all its failings, my feelings about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein are significantly more positive than the dismal critical consensus or the scathing post-mortem from its screenwriter would attest, but I'm still conflicted. This is at once a thunderous, meticulous page-to-screen hybrid of science fiction, horror, and philosophical drama, but still somehow less than the sum of its well-meaning parts. And while I hold it in great affection, I'm not going to question you if you think its pomposity, cheese, and sheer breadth leaves it dead on arrival. I would, however, argue that whether you admire or admonish Branagh's illusions of grandeur, or how he heavily rewrote a script that many still consider to be up there as one of the greatest adapted screenplays ever penned, nothing can prepare you for what was to come. A slow-moving disaster that would take 20 years to hit, and explode with the odorous stench of a thermonuclear septic tank.
Now, bring me Frankenstein's monster.
Okay, so the script is getting really long, and I, Frankenstein, whose very title is incorrect, deserves nothing but ire and piss, so I'm just gonna ramble for a moment about this defenestrated giraffe. Okay, so after a 3-minute metalcore clip show of Frankenstein's greatest hits, stitched together by a creative team who don't have a clue what they're talking about, this blasted dangler does the old switcheroo on the audience, because this isn't Mary Shelley, nor is it her non-union Mexican equivalent, Senora Shelbergo. It's Underworld.
There's a war. A war humans don't know about. It's been going on for centuries.
Though lichens were fewer in number, the war itself had become more perilous.
From its greasy ponytail to its Prince Albert, this is just a reboot of Underworld. Brought to you by the same writer, creator, producers, and director of photography who burped out that lyco-vampiric trash-flavored trash. All you need to do is swap out this sexy thespian with a Aaron Eckhart, werewolves with gargoyles, and vampires with hell demons, who coincidentally have the same appearance and weaknesses as vampires, because I'm guessing the writer had to pinch this turd off in a hurry so he could get back to drinking glue. As for the look of it, it's got that dentist reception lighting and some Michael Bay teals and blues mixed with some Gears of War desaturated hues, and the only thing here more embarrassing than what's caught on camera is the second-hand humiliation elicited by VFX that are about as convincing as Nigel Farage trying to say something not completely racist. The narrative heavy lifting for this truly F- screenplay is done by a disengaged, glass-throated voiceover, which is like asking a field mouse to carry a scuttled oil tanker across the f***ing Danakil Depression. None of which is done any favours by the sandy death rattle of dialogue like this.
This is Dr. Wade. She's one of the world's most respected electrophysiologists.
Hello.
All told, this is a movie that feels as though it was conceived, produced, and cut together at gunpoint, right down to its get the money and bail runtime that barely breaks 80 minutes. Resting in the rank company of A Million Ways to Die in the West, Atlas Shrugged Part 3, and Tusk as the worst motion picture of 2014, the final words of I, Frankenstein are...
I, Frankenstein.
Yeah, no you're not. No you're not. Stop.
Now that I've kicked that pig, let's get back to the script with the latest, costliest, and most lavishly produced look at the big man and his weaselly dad. A gorgeously made and passionately rendered impression of Gothic horror's magnum opus, Guillermo del Toro's lifelong love for this tale of humanity undone by hubris and moral entropy isn't up for debate.
This movie, I've been trying to make it since I was a kid, and I wanted to make it as personal as it can get.
Just take one look at his filmography and you can't miss all the overt allusions. Chronos' bleak look at the cost of immortality, the unforeseen circumstances of evolutionary intervention from Mimic, the father issues, scientific overreach, Eurogoth stylings and misunderstood creatures of Hellboy, Blade 2 and The Shape of Water. Mary Shelley has guided Del Toro's creative hands and inquisitive heart for his entire career. So finally letting the man have a crack at honouring his muse seems like an ideal match. And it is, for the most part. Visually, this eschews the drab homogeneity that has mired so many Netflix releases in a pallid, formless mulch, and breathes dynamic range into the use of colours and composition that has as yet been unseen by the frigid Arctic and creaking castles roamed by Victor and his scarified progeny. It is gorgeous and grandiose, blending Del Toro's lush affinity for painterly contrasts with his penchant for blurring the classical and mechanical to deliver towering sets, and peerless production design that drips with molasses shadows, earthy textures, and the endearing warmth of Shelley's work. All of this visual attention to detail pushes the pathetic fallacy to the forefront better than any version of this I've seen, with the ferocity and loneliness of the inhospitable tundra matched only by the rage and desolation of this creature, and the miraculous wonders built atop these leaking, unwelcoming foundations, standing as a monument to Victor's aspirations and faults.
Past the mountains, past frozen horizons, until there was nothing left.
Narratively, liberties are taken and elements are cut, cropped, or outright deleted, and in theory, I don't have a problem with that. I don't think any creative should feel tied to legacy when sketching out their own subjective vision of pre-existing material, otherwise we'd have copies of copies without the authorial stamp of creatives working in an entirely different medium than the inks and quills this comes from. The creation of Henrik Harlander gives this a meta edge, allowing Del Toro to comment on the relationship between creatives and the oily money men with too good to be true offers, who then insert their uninformed selfish wants in a way that might compromise the end result.
I may in time ask you for a favor in return, but it's mostly the privilege to record your process for posterity.
I work alone.
I'm very quiet.
Elsewhere, the Frankenstein family tree is simplified, pruned, and outside of a few edible glances, we do away with almost all of the incest stuff. Elizabeth as a character here is finally given autonomy, agency, and a calibrated compass of intelligence and compassion, something that far too many features bearing this name don't even attempt.
What would you have denied me? With my heart once.
Your heart. Of all the human anatomy, that is the organ furthest from your understanding.
Then we get to this unambiguously innocent illustration of Frankenstein's monster, brilliantly performed by Jacob Elordi, I might add, who serves as a martyr for the failings of man, cursed to a deathless purgatorial march to the end of existence itself.
I felt lonelier than ever, because for every man there was but one remedy to all pain: death, a gift you too had denied me.
Despite these thoughtful edits and the unimpeachable artistic instincts that fill out every frame, this still has quite a few wriggling flaws that burrow through the brilliance of its technical achievements.
Pay attention.
What we have here is a 2.5-hour epic that feels every minute of its length, but still somehow feels incomplete. We'll start with Victor. Upon besting the boundaries of heaven and earth by giving life to the lifeless, we see Victor rejoice with pride and affection for this curious fawn, like a joyful dad watching his boy splashing in puddles as he stammers out his first words.
All right, good. So we can take a big step. We can do it together. Ready? This way, like this.
Just one scene later, Victor seems to have foregone most of his parental compassion and taken up the role of a bullying, sadistic sociopath.
No. Stop. Come here. No! Don't touch me! Don't ever touch me!
Which, beyond one fleeting exchange early in the movie where he experiences corporal punishment from his perfectionist father, feels like it's missing multiple developmental steps and any diegetic context or cohesion.
Come on! Give it to me, beast!
Similarly, the creature pivots from a solitary altruist to an anhedonic mass of hatred for humankind in the space of about 10 minutes. In the novel, this makes sense, as he is outright rejected and assaulted without provocation by his surrogate family and all those he has ever loved. In Del Toro's version, his short-lived happiness is undone not by mankind, but a stray pack of feral wolves. Which all but stomps out the crucial context needed for his shifting perspective. Finally, while Mia Goth's Elizabeth is brilliant with the relatively little screen time she's afforded, I can't help but feel she's wildly underused, and the omission of the subplot in which she becomes a victim of these ungodly experiments robs her whimpering death of its ferocity and shattering power.
Move away from it!
While these are all changes for the worse, conversely, problems also emerge from Del Toro's overly precious reverence for the often archaically overt, explicitly signposted subtext of these 207-year-old words.
Only monsters play God Baron.
This leads to more than a handful of clunky lines that work on the page but belly flop as spoken dialogue, and the nails on a chalkboard insistence of having every main character announce some variation on, you know, man might be the real monster here, feels outright condescending.
You are the monster.
To quote what my friend Tommy said on this very subject, there are 3 layers to Frankenstein. 1, the creature is the monster. 2, Victor is the real monster. Or 3, okay, but like, the creature is also kind of a bit of a monster too. Del Toro is stuck on the second layer.
I'm your maker! Stop it!
Frankenstein 2025 is fascinating, frustrating, and a 3-way split between creatively invigorating, over-encumbered, and lost in the sauce. The question is, have we ever been this close to the definitive film of this modern Prometheus?
Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image, without reckoning upon God.
Watching all these takes on Mad Vic and his stitched-up Sonny Boy after delving back into the book for the first time in well over a decade, I found myself surprised by the unique heights of creative latitude and artistic invention that each of these, not you, manages to mine from the same source. Are any of these definitive or a direct one-to-one with the book? No, and that's okay, because each of the films here, Still Not You, evokes the feelings, themes, and complex emotional arcs of Frankenstein without denying the additive virtue of poetic license or falling into a pattern of sycophantically cuckooing every syllable straight from Mary Shelley. And I found all of these highlight and honour a different part of this tragic tome.
My creature will be born with a lifetime of knowledge.
Frankenstein 1931 gave us a resilient skeleton of what this could be. The Curse of Frankenstein has the guts and libidinal drive to stand apart from its influences without abandoning them. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein has a tenacious heart whose arrhythmia, pacing, and tone make for a divisive but sincere effort. I Frankenstein is the prolapsed anus that's best discarded as medical waste, and Frankenstein 2025 has the swooning eyes and thoughtful mind for the delicate details and daunting logistics of this monster's existential odyssey that sometimes forgets to look before it leaps.
You're very strong.
On their own, they're incomplete but impressive, ambitious, and adoringly crafted. F*** you. But together, they collectively make for a monster that's more than worthy of love.
Yes. That's it. That's the combination. That's the combination. That's it.
A spoopy laboratory for our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, Jennifer Fetish, Reed Stoven, CC Sings, George Napper, Arden Hughes, John Hughes, Samantha Hughes, Case Hengeveld, Tara O'Connell, and Nicholas Lair Revere, and a kind blind gentleman for all these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. So how many adaptations of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein have you seen? What is your favourite? And what is the worst? The best way to help us out is to let me know down in the comments, like and subscribe, and share this video with whoever you think could be interested. If you're in a position to do so, consider checking out our Patreon at the link in the description below, where you can get your name in the end credits, membership to our film club, and access to our private Discord. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.